Dr. Mr. Singh, is admin Saumen there?
No, sir. No, sir. He just trying to log in, sir. He was on computer only when I spoke to him.
Yeah. He is asking, am I audible? I think he is mute. Saumen, you are mute. Saumen, can you listen to me? Mr. Santosh, I think he needs some technical assistance. So you may call him again and ask him.
I'm just speaking to him only, sir. Yeah. I am speaking to him only. I am online with him, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am listening to you, sir.
To all those audience who have joined with us, I welcome you today for the 13th clinic. We'll just wait for 2-3 minutes. There is some technical assistance with the speaker's laptop. So we'll start in 2 to 3 minutes.
Hello.
Yes, I mean, you are audible to us.
Okay, I'm just sharing. I will. Should I try to share my presentation right now?
No, just wait for some time. We want to see your face. You are not visible. So you can start your video.
But I'm not able to hear Dr. Yogesh Sarvani.
Okay. Mr. Santosh, can you help Dr. Saumen?
Hello.
You are not able to hear Yogesh, sir?
No, I am able to hear you, but I'm not able to hear Yogesh.
You are hearing because I am on mobile, sir. So that's how you are hearing me, sir, probably.
Turn off your mobile.
Are you able to hear me, sir? Saumen, sir?
1 minute. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible to me.
Yeah, but video is not working. Saumen.
Sir, just starting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Because some problem with the desktop, I'm just trying to share
yes,
my
now.
presentation. Okay.
Now,
Okay.
Somin, can you hear me?
Now, Swami, you are visible and
Yes,
audible
yes.
also.
Yes, yes, yes.
Should we
I
start,
am
sir?
able to hear you all, and we...
Yeah. Okay. So we will start today's session. On behalf of physicians of Associations of Ahmedabad, Association of Physicians of Ahmedabad and Noble Gastro Hospital Ahmedabad, I welcome you all to 13th Clinic of Advanced Gastro Summit. And today we'll be mainly discussing on refractory or resistant H. pylori bacteria. Many times we encounter this, that even we eradicate H. pylori, still patients have symptoms. So what are the causes and how to evaluate them and how to treat them? And today we have Dr. Somin Shah with us. Before that, I would like to take opportunity to introduce our moderator of today, Dr. Viral Vyas, who is a young and energetic gastroenterologist at Jamnagar. I would like Dr. Viral Bhai to introduce today's chairpersons and request Dr. Shashank to introduce our speaker, Dr. Somin.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. And as Yogesh Bhai already told, today's topic is very interesting because it is a everyday problem which are faced by all the physicians and also gastroenterologists. So, not wasting much time. Today's our chairpersons are Dr. Shashank Paswala and Dr. Yogesh Desai. Both are eminent physicians from Surat. And I will request Dr. Paswala to introduce Dr. Somin Shah, and we will proceed further.
Good evening to all. Thank you, Dr. Viral Bhai, Dr. Jayesh Bhai. And on this Advanced Gastroenterology Summit 2020, 13th clinic of this summit, today we have Senior Consultant Gastroenterologist Dr. Somin Shah from Adajan, Surat. His topic is the post-H. pylori eradication. What next if patient is still symptomatic? Please, Dr. Somin.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, sorry for this technical glitches. I'm using my mobile right now to present PPT. And I first of all thank you NIG for giving this opportunity to present me the this lecture with H. pylori. Now lecture is what is H. pylori eradication and how we can do it. Okay, so what is the post H. pylori treatment? My slides are visible now?
Yeah, they are visible.
Okay. So post H. pylori treatment, if patient is still symptomatic, what next should be done? Now, if you see what are the possibilities, if suppose you are treating a patient with H. pylori treatment, until after treatment, patient is remains symptomatic. Now, what is the possibilities? First possibility, either it may be a wrong diagnosis, means patient may not be suffering from H. pylori and he is asymptomatic H. pylori carrier, and you just find a RUT positive and treat him. Otherwise, it's a wrong test. It may be a false positive test for H. pylori, or you are treating it empirically. It may be a wrong regime. You are not using a proper drug, or using a drug which is what we call the resistance, which has a resistance pattern, or it may lead to the failure of eradication, or patient may have reinfection or up again after complete eradication. So how we can deal with all these possibility, we will try to see one by one. Now, before the starting of the wrong diagnosis, we have to know okay, how the H. pylori act and how it will diagnose. So H. pylori will first described by in 1982 and to 1983 by Warren and Marshall from Australia. And after 20 years of this work, he will get a Nobel Prize. So it will took around 20 years to recognize the work done by Marshall and Warren that H. pylori is responsible for peptic ulcer disease in 1983. So I think after 6 years of that, first, it is the first antibiotic regime we started to use to treat H. pylori related ulcer. Now, epidemiology of H. pylori. So more than 50% of the world population is affected. Prevalence rates higher in developing countries. Infection mostly occurs in infancy and childhood. Western countries, older people are more likely to get infected due to the association of socio-economic situation during childhood. Suppose the person who is in America at the age of 70 years, at present Americans' hygienic condition is too good, but before 65 years or before 70 years, it may be slightly poorer than the present state, and the person may get infected at that time, and the prevalence may increase in this age group, but this is because of the previous poor sanitization or hygienic situation in the entire country. Okay, and reinfection in adult life said not to be common. So this is again a debatable. Reinfection study in India, there is a hardly 1 or 2 study, and it says it is a 2.5% per year per infection. So it is a per 2.5% per year. So it is a very, very unlikely because India is still a developing country. But what happens when this study done, it has been done with the people who is a very, what we call the sophisticated, educated, and from the higher socioeconomic class. So it indicates the reinfection in the higher socioeconomic class is slightly less or significantly less compared to the lower socioeconomic class. This is the same thing. This is the epidemiology or pattern of acquisition. If you see the orange graph, it is for the developing country. And if you see the blue graph, it is for the developed country or Western countries. So in orange graph, you can see around 80% of the individual get infected by the age of 20. While in blue graph, you can see the around 40 to 50% patients get contaminated with H. pylori by the age of 40. Okay, so now this graph is changing. This graph is from the 1994 study, and then we have already crossed around 25 to 26 years. So the country like India, who may be previously in orange graph, it may be right now in between some orange and blue. Now again, the H. pylori is such a heterogeneous and there are so many risk factors to get contaminated that it may be vary from what we call the state to state, even within a country also. The state with a more developed or a more developed city or even a segment of a city. Suppose if we take a part of Surat, so if we go for a, that is my logic, if we go for a epidemiological study and prevalence of H. pylori in Vesu area, it may be relatively less compared to the Varacha area because of the overcrowding and sanitation condition. So these are the risk factor: low socioeconomic group, less education, poor hygiene, crowding, unhealthy living condition, unclean food and water, and exposure to the gastric content. So these are the mode of transmission: fecal-oral, oral-oral, or gastro-oral. Now, pathogenesis of H. pylori is we read it is not very mandatory to understand in present lecture, but we can say simply like other bacteria, there are so many pathogenetic, what we call the weapons H. pylori have. Okay, it has a flagella to penetrate the mucosa. It has a urease enzyme to neutralize the gastric acid. It has a liposaccharide to adhere to the host cell. It has an outer protein to adhere to the host cell. It has an exotoxin which causing gastric mucosal injury. It causes a secretory enzyme. It causes a gastric mucosal injury. And a type 4 secretory system. So it's a feel-like system for injection of the effectors. And effector again lead to the inflammation. So there are plenty of the pathogenesis, and because of the multiple factors, till the date, H. pylori vaccine is not available. If you see the variety of the presentation of H. pylori, it may lead to the gastric ulcer, duodenal ulcer, gastric atrophy, acute or chronic gastritis, malt lymphoma or a gastric cancer. Now, if from the above, if H. pylori lead to the malt lymphoma and it lead to the gastric cancer, the country with the relatively higher prevalence like Africa and India should have a higher maltoma and gastric cancer. But that is not true. That is again an enigma. We are still scrutinizing how this happens. That is the Indian enigma or African enigma, that high prevalence of H. pylori, but relatively low stomach cancer compared to the Western country. So how this happened, we don't know. It may be a host factor. It may be a genetics of a developing country or something like that, which helps to prevent or protect ourselves from this stomach cancer. Now there are plenty of the non-gastric association also, like immunothrombocytopenia, iron deficiency anemia. Another is B12 deficiency that have not listed, but these three are proven and better level of evidence. And in patient with the ITP, in unidentified iron deficiency anemia and B12 deficiency, you can go for H. pylori eradication. It come to be a positive. Raynaud's phenomena, scleroderma, idiopathic urticaria, acne, migraine, and GB syndrome, that has a lack of data or poor association, or you may try treatment, but with not a very good result. Now, what are the signs and symptoms if patient got a H. pylori? Suppose patient gets acute H. pylori gastritis, it is a simple symptoms like other gastritis. And if patient has a chronic H. pylori gastritis, it may be asymptomatic and burning pain in abdomen, nausea, loss of appetite, frequent burping, bloating, or unintentional weight loss. So non-specific symptoms. So you see, this is very difficult to diagnose a H. pylori clinically. Okay, you have plenty of the patient of dyspepsia, and in fact, in each and every physician has around 30 to 40% of the patient of dyspepsia only. Symptoms are so common, so vague, so overlapping in between the functional dyspepsia, IBS, or a H. pylori related syndrome, and it is so prevalent. So many times patient is also asymptomatic. So sometimes what happens, you start treatment H. pylori positive patient, and the patient has a predominant functional element. You confirm the eradication, treat it, but till patient remains asymptomatic. So in such a case, you are dealing with either some GI or non-GI causes of dyspepsia, non-ulcer dyspepsia, or functional dyspepsia, and you have to search for other diagnosis. Now, what are the other diagnoses? Suppose you are very good at diagnosis, you follow all the protocol, you diagnose the patient with H. pylori, you treat according to the regimen, and you confirm the eradication after 4 weeks, but till there is a dyspepsia, then you have to look for a GI and non-GI causes of the dyspepsia. These are the organic causes like PUD, GI cancer, pancreatitis, pancreatic cancer, sphincter of Oddi dysfunction, gallstone, and these are the non-GI causes like patient having underlying diabetes mellitus, thyroid, multiple organ dysfunction, pregnancy, few medication that alters the gastric motility and may lead to the dyspepsia. So what are the indications for H. pylori testing? Now, if you go for endoscopy in patient with the dyspepsia, you should take the rapid urease test because it is a relatively very cheap in India. Then if you have a gastric or duodenal ulcer in endoscopy, or having a gastric maltoma, low grade maltoma, okay, or following endoscopic resection of the early gastric cancer by EMR or ESD, or any investigated dyspepsia, if population prevalence is more than 20%, in India it is around 40 to 80% in variety of the various part of the country. So these are the various indications for HP testing. Now, how will you test H. pylori? Apart from the endoscopy, how will you diagnose that you are doing treatment with, you are dealing with the H. pylori? Now, that is very important. Either there is an invasive test or there is a non-invasive test. If you called endoscopy an invasive test, then you can consider it. But for my personal perspective, in most of the diagnostic endoscopy, we are not going to breach any mucosa, and it considered as a non-invasive test. Okay, only at the time of taking RUT, we are going to breach mucosa, and we can consider it as an invasive test, or I say it's a hardly invasive test. Okay, so if it is, you go for the non-endoscopic or endoscopic classification rather than the invasive and non-invasive classification. So if non-endoscopic classification, it may be a stool antigen test, is urea breed test, serology or antibody testing. If endoscopic test, you can go for rapid urease test, you can take a histopathology examination, or in few special cases, you can take a culture also, and polymerase chain reaction binds molecular study also you can do. Now, when to go for endoscopy? When person comes with you dyspepsia, you can directly go for endoscopy when there is unexplained weight loss, recurrent vomiting, progressive or static dysphagia, odynophagia, gastrointestinal blood loss, anemia, family history of upper gastrointestinal cancer is important, and most important is patient's wish. Usually these patients are chronically dyspeptic, and most of the physician or most of the general practitioner are used to give pantoprazole or esomeprazole or rabeprazole, and they are not satisfied. So if patient's wish is an FDA approved indication for any investigation, not only endoscopy, even patient wants to go for angiography also, even if you think angiography will come normal, but patient says, I want to go under angiography, and if you deny it, then and later on some happens with the patient regarding some coronary issue, you are medical legally you are liable for that. So invasive test, or in my way it's endoscopic test. What are the advantage of the endoscopy? Now, two three things. What are the advantages? First of all, the cost in India is endoscopy is very low compared to the other countries. Even in Africa, endoscopy is considered around the 150 euro. Okay, so it is around 15,000 rupees in private setup. Okay, and it is around 50 euro, it's 5,000 rupees in public setup. Okay, so in India it is a considerably cheap, various in region from 3,000 to 6,000 rupees. Okay, now your dyspepsia is so non-specific, you can diagnose multiple condition apart from H. pylori, and you can get exact anatomical detail from simple endoscopy. And if you are going in the some good endoscopy shoot who have an NBI and HD endoscopy, they can also diagnose early gastric cancer, Barrett's esophagus, hiatus hernia, and many more things. So patient satisfaction is also very important, and most of the patients usually are satisfied there is nothing serious inside my stomach after endoscopy, because many dyspepsia has a functional element and anxiety element of fear of something very big disease inside his or her body. What are the disadvantages? Cost. If you think this 4,000 rupees is costly, then it's okay, it's a disadvantage. And so-called invasive, I have already told it is a not invasive, we are not going to breach any mucosa, but you can say it's an endoscopy. Okay, now endoscopy, you can just do a rapid urease test. Why it is rapid? It can give you result immediately or maximum within 24 hours. The principle remains same, that H. pylori produce urease that leads to the conversion of the ammonia, and alkaline nature of the substance happens that lead to the change in the color change in the strip. So there are variety of the RUT kits are available. Just the CLO test, HP fast, HU test, proton dry, and pylori tech. CLO test is the best, but most of the country are using the proton dry test, but it also has a good sensitivity and specificity. Now, second, for PCR, it is very costly, not available, usually used to identify a resistance patient of antibiotic, as well as it gives the genetic polymorphic, slightly give a genetic idea of H. pylori, and it is excellent in detecting H. pylori even in a lower road of H. pylori. Okay, so PCR usually used in the research condition or something like gastric maltoma, which is a what you call a malignancy, and you want to eradicate H. pylori and you want to know the resistant pattern, then sometimes you can use a PCR for that. Histopathological examination. Now, histopathological examination, biopsy is slightly inferior than RUT and PCR. It is negative in low viral load. but it has a usefulness if it detects incomplete intestinal metaplasia rather than complete intestinal metaplasia. Risk of progression to the gastric cancer is high in such an individual, and more vigorous watch and more vigorous eradication should be started on that individual. So histopathology is a time consuming, and world biopsy is threatening for the patient. It is also a costly because your endoscopy is costing around 4,000, but your histopathology examination is costing around 1,200 rupees, and your RUT is hardly costing around 300 to 500 rupees. Culture. Culture is not used. It is only used in the special condition, particularly in the gastric cancer related to H. pylori and few research purpose. Now, what are the non-invasive testing? Okay, in non-invasive testing, urea bread test is the most reliable test apart from the RUT, and it is also useful for the confirmation of eradication after 4 weeks of the H. pylori, but however, it is not available, as well as it is very costly. So if you go for urea blood test and it costing around 3,000 to 3,500 rupees, I personally feel it is better to go for endoscopy for 4 to 5,000 rupees and getting much more detail than urea blood test. And availability is also an issue because it is a radiolabeled carbon. So capsule availability as well as machine availability is most issue in most of the part of the country. Now serological test. Now that's I want to emphasize who are the listening participant that serological test is not useful in India at all. Don't treat your patient via using a IgG or IgA serology for H. pylori. They don't differentiate between the acute and chronic. IgG antibody for H. pylori remain persistent for 3 years even after infection, and the kit which is available in India are also not reliable. The serological test is an excellent detection tool for a developed country where H. pylori prevalence is less than 40% or 30%. In India, you can use it for the epidemiological survey or prevalence of the disease, but not to diagnose an acute or chronic condition or to treat it. So don't waste patients' money on serological tests, as well as don't start H. pylori treatment on the basis of serological test. I have seen many patients who comes with the IgG H. pylori antibody positive and started on H. pylori treatment. Please don't do this. Stool antigen, it is another excellent test, very sensitive, very specific, can be used for eradication also. But availability is an issue. It is not available in Surat, and I think probably not available in Ahmedabad also. And patient compliance is also required for that. Now, what are the policies of this testing? Now, most of our patients comes with the PPI and antibiotics. After that, if they are not improving, they refer to the gastroenterologist or physician, and they won't go for endoscopy and rapid urease test or something like that. So all this treatment, antibiotics, PPI, antacid, H2 receptor blocker, they reduces the viral load. They reduces the H. pylori load in the stomach, and your test may go false negative. But dilemma is that if your patient comes with the epigastric burning and you ask him that you stop PPI for 14 days, you stop Rentec for 7 days, and after that I will going to test you for an endoscopy and RUT, most of the patient we are not able to discontinue this PPI or ranitidine. Now comes with the treatment. Okay. Now in treatment, this is a treatment regimen of the present state. Now, if you go for the third column, that is most commonly used in the market, that is a standard triple therapy, which is available as a HP kit by the various company, contains PPI, amoxicillin, clarithromycin, or in few contain metronidazole. Okay, and we give a 14 days of this treatment. Now, duration of treatment is also very important. It is usually in developing country for 14 days, unless and until in your segment of society, if you have proved that 10 days treatment is equally efficacious as 14 days treatment, you can give it for 10 days also. Now, what we call is the concomitant therapy is the best treatment nowadays because it has a maximum eradication rate 87 to 94%. That is pantoprazole, amoxicillin, moxicillin, metro, and clarithrol. Okay, in sequel cell therapy, initially 2 drugs, then 3 drugs. In hybrid therapy, initially 2 drugs, then 4 drugs. So best eradication rate you will give with the concomitant therapy or a hybrid therapy. So more agent, more eradication is on the card. Now, what are the grading system for H. pylori? Any therapy, if is cure rate is more than 90%, it is excellent and test according to that, but this is not very useful in clinically. So what is important is the optimal treatment, optimal dosage, dosing interval. Suppose in HP kit, you ask the patient to take pantoprazole before and amoxicillin and clarithromycin after breakfast and meal. And duration of the therapy is equally important. If your segment of society permits, you can do it for 10 days, but most of the part we prefer to for the 14 days regime. Now, what are the factors affecting the H. pylori? That despite of the H. pylori treatment, H. pylori remains there and patient remains symptomatic. Now, again, I have not made it slide, but there is a one study which says that if you treat an H. pylori patient with symptomatic dyspepsia, the patient with symptoms or without symptoms, either you treat or not treat, the getting symptom free is slightly marginal with H. pylori rather than a simple PPA. Okay, so what are the factors affecting the H. pylori? It is the host factor means compliance to the therapy or some genetic polymorphism, and obesity, smoking, taking NSAIDs. All these are host factors which prevents the H. pylori form eradication. And bacteria itself is resistant to the antibiotics. That is a negative H. pylori. All these are bacterial factors. So what we can do to avoid the resistance? Okay. Now resistance pattern with H. pylori is all or none phenomena. If clarithromycin is resistant, you cannot increase the dose of clarithromycin and H. pylori becomes susceptible. For levofloxacin, it is the same. It's all or none phenomena. In metronidazole, it is not all or none phenomena. You have to increase the dose of metronidazole, but it should not be used increasing dosage when prevalence is more than 40%. So India, it is not useful, as well as metronidazole in higher dose is difficult to tolerate. Bismuth does not, the resistance to the bismuth is not noted till the date, and bismuth was not available in India. Is just introduced by one company before, I think 2-3 months. So nowadays, quadruple therapy with bismuth is the best treatment for the H. pylori. And in our country, resistance of the clarithromycin is increasing. So all the regimen C can be replaced by L. All the clarithromycin can be replaced by levofloxacin, the regimen we have described previously. Okay, so you see, this is the clarithromycin resistance. So what you can do, you can go for bismuth containing quadruple therapy. So cross resistance in each paper, suppose patient is resistant to clarithromycin, it will definitely resistant to azithromycin. Okay, if resistance to levofloxacin, it is resistance to all ciprofloxacin or ofloxacin, all type of fluoroquinolones. No cross resistance between the different families of antibiotic, and important to use compound indicated to get a good result. Okay, suppose in macrolide, if you feel that clarithromycin is slightly has a side effect, we go for azithromycin, then azithromycin has a much less lower eradication rate. Only exception is the tinidazole. Okay, and in India, what we differ from the Maastricht 5 criteria, Maastricht 5 guideline is for the H. pylori. H. pylori is such an organism that entire journal is available on H. pylori from Wiley Online. Okay, so because it's a grade 1 carcinogen by WHO, and it's such a organism that even after 30 years we have to find something new and new and new daily. So if clarithromycin indicated in macrolide, you go for clarithromycin. If metronidazole indicated, metronidazole, and if tetracycline indicated, go for tetra, not doxy. Okay, sometimes what happen, we replace the drug. Levoflox we can replace with Oflox or Ciplox, but it is not good, not able to give a good result. So how will you follow up this patient? You diagnose properly, you treat properly, you take care of the patient compliance, you take care of the resistance pattern, and you give treatment for 2 weeks, optimal duration. After that 2 weeks PPI for twice a day, and there is a known drug for another 2 weeks, and after that you have to go for eradication. Now eradication test, repeat endoscopy and RUT is not recommended, because once you have treated the patient, viral load will be low. So RUT may be negative. Best is the stool antigen and UBT. However, it is not available. But India, particularly in high risk patient, the patients with the family history of gastric cancer, having a biopsy incomplete intestinal metaplasia, or a past history of maltoma or rejection of the early gastric cancer, we have to confirm the eradication because of the resistance pattern. So it is repeat UBT and a stool antigen test. But if patient has already gastroduodenal ulcer in the first endoscopy, then you can repeat endoscopy also. How will you follow up after HP eradication? I have already told, endoscopy follow up only in the patient with advanced pre-malignant condition, early gastric cancer, or hereditary risk of gastric cancer like Peutz-Jeghers and familial adenomatous polyposis. Confirm eradication after 3 months by urea breath test every 3 months first year, every 6 months for second year, and then annually up to 5 years. This is for the only patient who has a high risk for the development of cancer. Now, what is the rescue therapy? Okay, if you are going to fail 2 or more therapy, you have used a standard triple therapy, but again failed. You have used go for the sequential therapy, again failed. Then what are the rescue therapy you have? That is a rifabutin based triple therapy. I have personally not used, and the rifabutin I think very costly. So levofloxacin based therapy that I have already described, that all the clarithromycin should be substituted by levofloxacin, or you can start a bismuth based quadruple therapy, and that is the should be concomitant, 4 drugs for 14 days, and that gives you a best result. Reinfection, I have already told, it varies from countries to countries, state to state, even the segment of society from another segment of society. So it totally depends upon the hygienic condition and socioeconomic class of that particular area, and reinfection that depends on that. Probiotics. Now, what happens with the, if you adding the probiotics with standard regime, it helps to tolerate the antibiotics better. Okay, and what indicates in study that if you give a probiotic, it will act in vivo against H. pylori. Okay, but it is not able to eradicate the H. pylori. Few companies are promoting that you give a single dose of probiotic for 4 weeks or something like that, and you will help, means you will able to eradicate H. pylori, but this is not true. Okay, yes, it is better to tolerate the H. pylori treatment, as well as it is helpful partially to improve the eradication rate, because there is an inverse relationship with gut microbe. Increase the gut microbe, beneficial microbe, and H. pylori load will be reduced. Okay, so it decreases the diarrhea, it compete with the H. pylori, so H. pylori load will be reduced, and Lactobacillus reuteri inhibits the H. pylori in vivo and in vitro, but not able to eradicate. So it's a supplemental to the quadruple therapy. Okay, only thing, if you give a triple therapy or a quadruple therapy, there are you are using a metro amoxicillin or a clarithromycin, you have diarrhea, you have bad taste. Okay, so sometimes you have nausea. So you avoid this, you are adding a one domperidone or some prokinetic. Along with that, you add one probiotic. So patient has a, for 14 days, patient has a morning, afternoon, and evening, almost 7 tablets. So that is, the pill load is too high if you go for everything. Okay, so in short, bismuth based therapies continue to show the clear advantage over the non-bismuth based therapy, and clarithromycin resistance is increasing, and time to switch to the alternative using a levofloxacin or a bismuth based therapy. Now, Maastricht 5 and Florence criteria, that is the guideline for the H. pylori eradication from the Europe. How India is different from that is there is no recommendation for all screening of all dyspeptic patient for H. pylori unless and until you go for endoscopy. Okay, so because urea breath test is not available, stool antigen test is not available. If patient go for endoscopy, by adding a 300 to 500 rupees, you can screen for H. pylori. But all dyspeptic, no need to go for H. pylori because prevalence is too high. Even functional dyspepsia is also prevalence is too high. No recommendation for treating the all functional dyspeptic for H. pylori. Suppose patient has asymptomatic H. pylori. Now this is a very important. It is very difficult to differentiate clinically that this patient has a functional dyspepsia and not H. pylori related dyspepsia. Okay, but if you have a clear-cut angious patient, very stressful, not responding to the PPI, and responding to some anxiolytic like alprazolam or clonazepam, it is a more a functional dyspepsia, stress-related dyspepsia, and in such a case, even if your RUT is positive, you are not going to treat them. Okay, test, treat, and retest. Again, empirical H. pylori therapy is not indicated in high prevalence area where antibiotic resistance is increasing day by day. So don't give empirical HP kit. Go for testing, treat it, and retest it, particularly in patient having a possibility of development of gastric cancer. Apart from tinidazole, can be used in place of metro. Otherwise, what drug is indicated in that class should be used. Fear of cancer is not an indication for treatment. Suppose some patient says, okay, I have abdominal pain and I am doubt that there may be some tumor in future. So please give H. pylori eradication because there are nowadays this type of patient is increasing because of Google. Okay, so there is not an indication. And please don't use serology for the acute or a chronic infection, chronic persistent infection. Serology is not a test to be used for this. It is in developing country. It is just for the epidemiological survey. So in private practice, it is not useful. So again, we have, I think, covered all the issue. How we diagnose, how we test, what test should be used, what regime should be used, what if you feel the drug resistance, what you have to do for the reinfection. But most important search, if your H. pylori is eradicated and patient is still symptomatic, look for other causes of GI and non-GI causes of dyspepsia. Thank you. Hello.
Listen to you.
Hello.
Yes, Somin, we can listen to you.
Most important is to search for other causes of GI and non-GI causes of dyspepsia also. Suppose patient has a H. pylori positivity, it doesn't mean that you have to have H. pylori related symptoms. You may have some non-H. pylori related symptoms also. Thank you.
It was well covered topic, Somin. I would like to request Viral Bhai to share his experience as a gastroenterologist.
Yeah, very well, Somin Bhai, very well explained. And I think most of the thing has been covered. Personally, I also feel there is another Indian enigma is that whether we should test for H. pylori or not also. Because some literature also says that if you find the ulcer, then and then search and then start a treatment. Even if you find gastritis, no need. But practically, I think we all check for many of the patient and also treat all the patients also, because I mean, it is still not proven that it does not cause any malignancy or anything in the Indian patient. So that is the thing. Another thing, when we are treating and also we are retesting, we, I think, need to be careful the cost of the therapy, because it is almost near to our endoscopy charges. So it is very important. It is with probiotic, it is reaching up to 2,000 to 3,000. So it is also very important to explain the patient when we are testing for the H. pylori. And one more thing, during the endoscopy finding, it is more detailed that many of the patients are immediate positive. If suppose any patient RUT comes in the 2 to 3 hours, and also we most of the time we correlate in the endoscopy, typical mosaic pattern we find, typical erythema nodular pattern is seen in this patient, and by endoscopy even we can diagnose many of the time this patient mostly will have H. pylori positive, and in that case delayed RUT sometimes still, I personally believe that delayed RUT is still controversial, because Many of the patient may not improve, or many of the patient even in histopathology may not come positive with H. pylori with delayed RUT positive. But still it has been mentioned that within 24 it should be monitored. So we have to do still the further studies are done.
યાર પ્રોબ્લેમ થશે ત્યાં જતા નથી એટલે દૂર અમારે અહીંયા છે શું
I personally feel, Virul bhai, the possibility of delayed RUT is to detect the patient with the relatively low viral load of H. pylori.
Agree. Yes, it is possible.
Okay, because what happens in most of the time, patient comes with the PPI. Okay, so viral load is relatively suppressed. So that's why a concept of a delayed RUT is still valid. But what I want to know, when you give a person, you say that India we should treat or not treat. If you think about the gastric cancer perspective, or if you think about the myeloma perspective, then it's a different story. But if you think about the chronic dyspeptic symptoms, what is your opinion? Should we treat or not treat?
I think still we need more detailed study, because personally I check the H. pylori in I think around 80 or 90% patient of dyspepsia, and it's only the stomach is completely normal, then and then I leave it like that. Otherwise I personally check and I treat also. That is my personal experience. But
I am also treating, but just I'm telling
patient, you. I think around 50% response, I think around. That is also we need to accept.
So, Virul bhai, there are few questions in the chat box.
Yeah, I will just see that and I will ask somebody. So I think first question is standard triple therapy because of side effect, then what to do? So I think they want to ask that once we start the triple therapy, which is a kit base, and patient develops side effects, so what should we do? Whether we stop, whether we change the therapy, or what to do? Yes, comment.
Okay. So in triple therapy, if there is a side effect, most of the you have to identify the which side effect is there. Most of the patients comes with the bitter taste and what we call some sort of Gabramon or Becheni. Okay, so in such a case, I think you just switch clarithromycin to the levofloxacin. Okay, and see the result. Or if it is you are on metronidazole, switch to the tinidazole and see the result. Don't discontinue it. Slightly alter the medication and try to give reassurance to the patient that this is temporary, and try to complete it for 14 days. If we feel that, if you see after 4 or what my personal practice is, I just give H. pylori treatment for 5 days first. Now ask the patient, if you have a significant side effect, come back to me. But I have already explained them side effect, that there may be a few diarrhea, there may be a bitter taste. But if you are able to tolerate a bitter taste, if you are able to tolerate a diarrhea, say 3 or 4 times a day, and you are able to carry out your work, continue it for 14 days. If you are not able to, come after 5 days and I will change your medication. Okay.
Next.
Tomin, in one of your slides, you told that clarithromycin resistance is increasing. So do you want to give this message that we should not give clarithromycin more, or we should directly start with amoxicillin, levofloxacin and a PPI?
Look, what I personally feel, most of the companies, H. pylori kit contains clarithromycin or metronidazole. I think nobody has a levofloxacin based therapy. Okay. And very important to adherence to the compliance also. Hello. So what happens when you ask the patient with the 3 different tablet, take it for 6 days and not in a single uniform kit, possibility of compliance is relatively, adherence is relatively less. But I personally feel that company should come with the levofloxacin based kit. Okay. And another important thing is, because of the empirical treatment of H. pylori, clarithromycin treatment resistance is increasing, and same thing will happen with levofloxacin after 5-10 years also. Okay, if you are using empirically. Okay, because most of the time, I think around 10 to 15% of our dyspeptic patient underwent H. pylori already already underwent H. pylori treatment by a general practitioner without any testing. So that lead to the increasing resistance. But I feel if there is a convenience packing, proper explanation by the pharmacist or your some assistant that this pill should be taken like that, then levofloxacin has a relatively well tolerated compared to the clarithromycin and should be replaced the clarithromycin.
So, I mean, in our practice, we see that those patients who have H. pylori, they already have upper GI symptoms. And the treatment for H. pylori antibiotics also lead to upper GI symptoms. So what do you do? Do you recommend that once we diagnose H. pylori, we should immediately start on antibiotics? It is so urgent. Or we should give patients some symptomatic relief for a couple of days or weeks and then start him on anti-H. pylori treatment. What is your recommendation?
What I feel when patient comes to you for endoscopy, usually most of the symptomatic treatment they have taken. Unless until if you feel that patient has only taken PPI and they have not exposed with the prokinetics or domperidone, something like antacid. And most important, the clinical pattern. Okay, if you see during the talk with the patient, that patient is too anxious, having insomnia or some stress factor, in such a case, H. pylori positivity is just a chance finding. Okay. In such a case, it may be just asymptomatic H. pylori you are detected during the endoscopy, and you have to correlate with the endoscopic finding also. If it is significant erythema, mosaic pattern, you can straight away go for the drug therapy. And if you, I think, if you choose everything correctly, your clinical endoscopy and RUT test and patient profile, then around 80% patient will respond to the H. pylori treatment. Only thing they have come with few side effects. Suppose the patient come with the epigastric burning, so they will come after 5 days. My epigastric burning is better, but I have a more abdominal fullness or bitter taste. Okay. So clinical judgment, particularly of the stress factor and anxiety factor, I usually take into the consideration before starting H. pylori treatment in all positive patients.
So there is one question by a senior surgeon from Ahmedabad, Dr. Bharat Amin. Which is better, biopsy specimen taken in kit? I mean, I think he wants to say about rapid urease test, or biopsy in lab.
No, biopsy specimen in kit is much better, has a more sensitivity and more specificity and availability, rapidly available. For what we call a histopathological examination, when you suspect a H. pylori, in few pathologies you have to say regarding the spatial staining. And second, your yield is relatively low. Okay, because in depending upon the biopsy specimen, you have to identify the bacteria. While in rapid urease test, even bacterial load is low, but after 24 hours, if it produces enough urease, your RUT may turn positive. So in literature, sensitivity and specificity of endoscopic RUT is much more than gastric biopsy. And that's why we don't take gastric biopsy along with the RUT. Usually we take only RUT and patient has a gastritis. We don't take gastric biopsy unless and until on NBI we find some abnormal vascular pattern or pit pattern that may lead, we feel that this is early dysplastic changes. Then to see these dysplastic changes, we take a biopsy, but otherwise we take a rapid urease test only.
There is a question by Dr. R.K. Mittal from Indore. If RUT is positive and culture is negative, what to interpret?
Look, culture of H. pylori is relatively difficult. Okay. The story of the culture of H. pylori, first culture of H. pylori is the Easter holiday in Australia. So what was the story? That usually on first 34 sample, they try to culture from the gastric, what we call the mucosa, turned out to be a negative, and they used to discard the sample after 72 hours, Warren and Marshall. Okay. So after during Easter holiday, what they do, they inoculated the culture on probability Tuesday and Wednesday, and after that 5-day holiday in Australia. So after 7 days, they found a colony on that culture. So this culture turned out to be H. pylori. So that's how they discovered the H. pylori in gastric juices or a gastric biopsy specimen, sorry. So culture, I think first of all, nobody is going to go a culture report in clinical practice because it is a special consideration when patient has a maltoma and his urea breath test or stool antigen test is positive. You have tried first line treatment, you have tried second line treatment, you have tried rescue treatment, and you have tried even bismuth based treatment. After that, even cultures remains positive, patient remains positive or by a stool antigen or UBT test, then and then culture consideration should be taken. So culture sensitivity and specificity is relatively low considering the complexity of organism. So RUT is positive, patient is symptomatic, treat it.
There is one question by Dr. Kamlesh. When to consider repeat checking for H. pylori infection? I think Dr. Kamlesh Somin has already discussed about this. So we move on to next question by Dr. Yash Sangvi. He is also a surgeon from Ahmedabad. He wants to know a specific strain of lactobacillus. Can this be used in H. pylori? So, can you see the chat box?
Yes, I have seen, but I am going to already. I have this lactobacillus reuteri in vivo and in vitro have demonstrated to reduce the load of H. pylori. They have not demonstrated to eradicate the H. pylori. So, if you want to add this lactobacilli, you add it with the standard treatment. So, side effect will be less, tolerability will be more, and slightly eradication rate will be more. But alone, lactobacillus is not helpful to eradicate H. pylori. That is just a company is saying, but if you see the literature, there is absolute no. Dr. Ashok Upadhyay, realizing the current hazards of long-term PPI therapy, what is the opinion of the learned speaker and the panelist on the long-term therapy with chronic dyspepsia? What are the practical recommendation, evidence-based? Okay. Now, 2-3 things, sir. First of all, the whatever hazards you think of the long-term PPI. The most recently debated or most recently highlighted PPI was the kidney injury due to the PPI. Okay, now you see, if it is so hazardous, okay, then no, at this time, around 50% of world population has some kidney disease. Because from 1990, once PPI introduced, trillions and trillions of people has taken PPI over a period of 10 years and 15 years or 20 years. Okay, so few case studies or few case report cannot say the questionability or safety of PPI therapy. Yes, now what is the current guideline for long-term PPI therapy? Okay, now first of all, for what indication you are taking, that is very important. Suppose you are taking it for gastroesophageal reflux disease and you are a 60 years or 70 years old, I personally feel continue to take around 10 or 20 years if your lifestyle is okay and quality of life is okay. But if it is you around 30 years or 40 years patients, then better to go for fundoplication. Okay, now there is a, I personally feel if you see the benefit and risk of the PPI, long-term PPI, okay, benefit is much more compared to the hazards. So there is nothing like that you should, but good thing is to start PPI. If you improve, continue it for the 8 weeks and then discontinue. Okay, now for again, if you are discontinuing from second day or dyspepsia start, go for endoscopy, go for H. pylori testing. If it is positive, treat H. pylori, go for PPI for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, then again discontinue. Okay, so continuous, if you don't want to take, then it's okay. And suppose you are dyspeptic on some day, you are going in some marriage party, or at that time you feel after having food outside, I usually become dyspeptic. You can take PPI as and when basis also. Okay, but if you are a chronic dyspepsia, take PPI and take it continuously for 4 weeks at least. Okay, what the common mistake when patient is a dyspepsia. We just give a PPI for 5 days, 7 days, and discontinue it. If you want to give it at least for 4 weeks and then discontinue, the patient have a long time relief.
So, Saumin, is Bismuth available?
Before 2 months, one MR came to me, sir, we are going to introduce Bismuth in next month, but he had not visited me. So I think this month Bismuth should be available. But only thing, it is a 2 tablet. I think what they have strength, they have going to market, going to come in market is around 2 tablet 4 times a day. So pill burden is too much. But
but for short duration, 10 or 14 days doesn't matter.
But you see, there is not a single Bismuth. Na? You have to give amoxicillin, means amoxicillin, clarithromycin, means concomitant therapy, you another 3 tablet plus 2 tablet, 5 tablet. You want to give a prokinetic 6 tablet and some anti-emetic, something like that, to 7 tablet and 7 tablets for a 3 times month, every day 21 tablets for a 14 days. So compliance rate is relatively less. So that's why I prefer a standard triple therapy. At least compliance rate is better with the patient.
One more thing about the triple standard therapy. In the kit base, I think they are giving 750 milligram.
750 milligram.
So I think personally, I add 250 milligram additionally and give full dose of 1 gram twice a day.
But some pharma people is there. They can highlight why these are 7, because I have asked for 2-3 pharma people.
I have also asked. Their reply is like that the Indian patient develop more diarrhea. That's why they have kept low dose. So I don't know whether, but I think with 1 gram also most of the patient not developing so many diarrhea.
But those people who are developing diarrhea with 1 gram, they are also developing diarrhea with 750 milligram also.
Yes, it is possible.
So, Dr. Shashank, would you like to add something? So you are mute. Please unmute yourself.
No, there is good discussion. Now more questions from my side.
So if everyone agrees, we can close this session for today. It was very nice and lucid presentation by Saumin. He's a long-time friend of mine and he cleared everything very well. I also thank Dr. Viral from Jamnagar and Dr. Shashank. Dr. Yogesh was with us for a few minutes, I guess. And thank you all the audiences. At the end, I thank my mentor, Dr. Mahesh Kumar Goenka, who is course director for this summit. And I thank Sun Pharma for supporting us technically. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Good night. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Good night to all.
Good night.